Welcome back to Eduwell. In this episode, we are going to talk about something that we know every teacher will experience at some point in their career. The very difficult parent or guardian phone call or meeting that is incredibly hard to recover from. And I'm going to add email to the mix of that. Welcome to the Eduwell Podcast, a show created for, by, and with teachers. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chelsea. Our goal is to share insights and connect with fellow teachers on how to thrive both personally and professionally.
Join us as we dive deep into the well of information filled with relatable tips, practical discussions, and ideas that go way beyond the classroom walls. Let's be well
and do well together.
In the last episodes, we talked about getting different forms of resilience and strategies while dealing with phone calls. And today we're going to explore what to do after these challenging phone calls or emails. Okay, Chelsea, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever dealt with a really challenging phone call or email?
Yes, I have. A few times actually, but one sticks out to me quite a bit. And that was early on in my career when I had received a phone call from a parent. And I took this phone call in the staff room. And so there was another staff member in there. I had no idea what was coming, but I got on the phone and then pretty much just listened to the parent ream me out for, something that I didn't quite agree with. And I couldn't get a word in the whole time. And I just remember listening and trying to speak, but being unable to get my point across or my side across. And it went on for about a solid 5 minutes. And then I hung up the phone and I was very upset. I could feel my face getting red, I was kind of sweating and I was embarrassed. And I looked at the person who was sitting on the couch, the staff member, and they were looking at me. And the most important thing that I remember about that situation was that other teacher looked at me and said, "Whatever that was, you didn't deserve it." And instantly I felt a reassurance. I felt like I had someone on my side who would listen to me and who would understand what I was going through. And sure enough, this person did. And they sat with me and we talked about the conversation. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me in that type of situation. And so that's why our first R for rebounding from challenging parent conversation is relate.
Okay, so let me just mention that in this episode, we are going to deal with using 3 R's to rebound. And those 3 R's for rebounding from those tough parent conversations are relate, regroup, and reassure. And just remember, everyone, this podcast is about you, which means that the 3 R's are for you first and then the parent. So Chelsea, please go into the first R, relate.
Yeah, when it comes to relate, I think, like I said, this was the greatest thing that I could have heard in that moment when I was feeling so hurt and confused and upset. So especially as a new teacher who had never experienced anything like that yet, I was just so grateful for that person and that comment and that connection because it helped me to confirm my own beliefs about how I really didn't deserve that. There are situations where maybe something did go wrong and you need to apologize or you need to talk it out. But there are also situations where you are right and you need to stand up for yourself. And that's something that you learn from your colleagues and from the people that you can relate to who have been in these types of situations.
When you were describing that situation, which I think is very relatable, I'm going to add, I had a mental picture of you in our staff room. And you mentioned that your face turned red. But I also visualized a situation where you're like a deflated balloon and you're getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the conversation goes on. And one of the things that you mentioned was obviously the physical reaction, and you're getting sweaty and just like kind of panicking. That fight or flight is kind of probably going through your body in that moment. But you also mentioned embarrassed. And you can be moving along in your career, you're working hard, you're getting positive feedback. Most importantly, maybe you just feel good about what you're accomplishing and you're connecting with people. And it's like someone comes and they pop that balloon and it creates that just huge sense of embarrassment and doubt about oneself. And it can be beyond humbling and not in a good way. And unfortunately, I always remember those phone calls far more than I remember the positives. And they can just ruin a lot of good flow, right? And so having someone who is able to talk with you, be vulnerable, and share their worst stories, which are often 10 times worse than what you just experienced, is such a beautiful thing. And I'm so grateful to my colleagues who've done that for me. And I'm going to guess you've had more than one negative phone call. I know I have.
Yeah, I mean, they happen and it's a part of the job sometimes. And that's why it's important to talk to other people, and then you'll have a better idea of how to handle that situation. So after this happens, there's not much you can do about it except for regroup. So that's our second R. After the phone call happens, you're going to feel all of these feelings most likely, but then you kind of need to try to use this as fuel. You now have this experience under your belt, and it's only going to make you stronger and more equipped, like I said, to handle what comes next.
I love how you said use it as your fuel. And I know for me, regrouping requires reflection. So I do a lot of reflecting as a process of regrouping. I also make sure that I take some time and just remove myself from that space and I do something for myself that is positive. And I have to I don't know, I have to get some major reassurance from people in my life. And I lean on them, not just to tell me that things are okay, but to build me back up. And I know that sounds really kind of sad. Um, but I typically need to do that. And I have key people in my life who are honest with me, but who have a bigger picture, because when something like this happens, it's all you see, it's all you feel, it's all you're experiencing. But there is a really big picture that exists within your life, within your teaching. And they widen the lens back out so that you realize it's not everything. Do you know what I mean when I say it feels like everything?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's all you think about. It consumes you because, like you said, your balloon has been popped. You're completely deflated, and it just takes over because as humans, we tend to focus on the negative. That's why it is then really key to get that reassurance. That's not sad at all. That's something that we all need to do, to get reassurance from someone else, from others, from people who support you, and to also give it to yourself. So that's our third R. Get that reassurance. Think of the phone calls that you have had that went really well and moved something forward, and choose to focus on the positives and all that you have done. Sometimes it's not you, it's them, right?
Yeah, and this is kind of a human thing. I don't want to say parents, and I'm a parent, so it's humans. Sometimes you are the receiver of another human's. They're dumping on you. They're angry, and everything has gone wrong in their life for a nice chunk of time. And there's something that happened that set them off, and you're the poster person for bringing out a feeling that they have deeply in their life. And so they dump on you really, really hard. And you're kind of like, what's going on here? Oh my gosh. The response doesn't match the action that you did or the words that you used, the offense that happened. And so that's why earlier when you said, Chelsea, that, you try not to talk too much, that can be really useful. And sometimes, of course, if that, runaway train is too fast and too furious, ending that conversation, which we talked about in the Get episode, is also really important. So the third is reassure. And I want to just reassure everyone that's out there that whether young or old, teachers have had this experience. And of course, you're going to move forward from it. And people that I respect the very most in the profession, I have talked to, and they've had awful phone call experiences.
Yeah, I just like how you related it to the fact that this could happen anywhere, not just at work. Confrontation is stressful, but it's a part of life, and it's something that we all have to deal with. And using the three R's could be helpful.
Based on what you just said, I added a fourth R: reclaim. Reclaim the confidence that you had the day before the phone call. It doesn't undo all the great things that you've done as a teacher, as a human being in the world. Do a reclaiming of your confidence. Now, What that looks like for everyone is going to be completely individual. So that's cool. You do you, I do me, I do what I do that builds me up, and, just own it. Walk forward. Reclaim that confidence. Sometimes the well waters are not as approachable. So you don't want to avoid the well. You still want to go and revisit it and make sure you're maintaining and taking care. And with that interesting little analogy, I think we're ready for the takeaways.
Takeaway number 1, relate. Talk to someone who can empathize with your experience to help you process and confirm your own feelings.
2, regroup. Reflect on the interaction. Learn from it and use it to strengthen your approach for future conversations.
3, reassure. Focus on the positive interactions you've had and remind yourself that this tough moment will pass.
Number 4, reclaim. Reclaim your confidence. Just because you have a bad phone call does not undo all the wonderful things that you do. Little rhyming. Thanks for listening to the Eduwell podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave a positive review. It helps others to find us.
Follow us on Instagram and Pinterest to help spread the word. For more inspiration, tips, and book recommendations, just head to the show notes and join the Eduwell newsletter today. Until next time, be well
and do well.